Greetings and welcome to another edition of The Pedal Shift Project. The Pedal Shift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride, let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/276, and you can email the show at pedalshift@pedalshift.net or text me at 202-930-1109 and check Pedal Shift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 276th edition of the Pedal Shift Project. My name's Tim Mooney. Thanks so much for joining. This is the second part, which is the first part of day 2 of the Tampa to Walt Disney World 2022 tour, The Approach. If you did not join us for the prep episode number 274 or day 1, episode 275, I invite you to go check those out. On this episode, it's the continuation of the bicycle tour of Central Florida with a very distinct Disney twist at the end. Day 2 starts off in the outskirts of Lakeland, Florida, and goes all the way to Disney World. But in between, I encounter a literal roadblock. Does my plan to ride all the way to my resort's poolside bar belong in Fantasyland? See what I did there? Good morning from Lakeland, Florida, day 2. And it starts before dawn. I have had a cup and a half of mediocre hotel coffee. Sometimes you drink coffee because it tastes good and you carefully brew it and grind your beans and use high quality materials and filtered water, and sometimes you make coffee at a hotel or drink the pre-prepared coffee at the hotel breakfast. This is one of the lesser light hotels of the area, if you believe the reviews, and it's not great, but I will say they take great pride in their morning breakfast, and that was very much communicated at check-in. And while the room definitely was more of a, okay, I'm just going to sleep here kind of a thing, it was fine. The breakfast was actually pretty decent, pretty good, especially if you were searching for calories like I was. And I had a nice big egg, potato, and biscuit and gravy bowl, which was perfect. A nice little good calories, but not like fill your stomach, so you're feeling super heavy kind of a thing. Although, if I had gone back for seconds, that certainly would have been the case. I did end up packing up last night, and I'm really glad I did, because, although I'm awake this morning, just knowing that everything was put away and packed in a better way than I did yesterday, it just makes me feel a little bit better. The things that I know I'll need some access to are out or towards the top of the Orly pannier, which is the thing I have the best access to. And I made sure that I put things that I would have less potential need for in the event bag. I don't believe I actually mentioned in the day 1 episode. You can tell I'm still kind of waking up, right? What I'm taking, I may have mentioned it in the preview episode, but what I'm going to be doing is I've got the Ortley back roller on the hanging on the Brompton luggage rack. It used to be that I would strap that down with zip ties and things like that, and while I did bring those, I have not found that to be necessary. It's just more than it's needed. It clicks in just like it would on the back rack of any touring bike, and it behaves just great. I'm super happy with how this turned out. Kind of stumbled upon it. So the event bag, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's a particular brand of dry bag. It allows you to compress air out, and it can basically really, really cinch down to a nice size. Not only is that a good bag generally, but on the Brompton, it can cinch down to the point where I can strap it in really nicely and tightly on the rear rack with the built-in bungees. I add one more just to be on the safe side, and then what I'll do is I'll find that it's far enough back that I don't get any heel strike. And that's the real issue with so many touring uses of a Brompton, because that rear rack is fantastic and useful. However, if anything comes up towards the rear, or excuse me, the front of the rack, which is right behind the saddle, the opportunity for heel strike is really high. Just how this bike is designed. And yesterday I had none, which I think I'm finally dialing this in. This was a challenge I had with the backpack method that I initially started with. And I'm sure there's ways that I could figure out how to put a spacer or something like that in there. But that also is just more capacity than I need. Now, what I have noticed is that I am filling every corner of the capacity that I have. And it's largely because, I just wanted to make sure I had clothes to wear when I'm done cycling that hadn't been cycled in. I have a second pair of shoes, things that I wouldn't necessarily bring on a tour normally. If I brought a second pair of shoes, they'd be like flip-flops, camp flip-flops. So not something I need for this trip. Or I suppose I could, but the extra clothes that I need are more for the nicer resort dining that I am planning on doing at the other end of all of this. Disney stuff that I will not belabor you with, but it's important to know just why did I bring so much stuff for what's effectively just a 100-mile tour. Speaking of, I feel great this morning energy-wise. I slept really, really hard. I chose not to track my sleep last night because the watch is zapping my wrist all day long, just, with the tracking of miles and heart rate and all that other kind of stuff. So I thought I'd give my wrist a little bit of a break. But based on how I feel and how hard and how long I was out, I really feel like I had a ton of deep sleep. And that makes sense because, I had a really early morning yesterday. I was up at 4 and, I biked nearly 50 miles in the sun. And based on the redness of certain parts of my body, I am very grateful that I am making the choice to get out of here very soon after the sun comes up. I'm peeking out the window right now, and we're at kind of morning daylight is upon us. Even though the sun is not quite up yet. As soon as I'm done recording, frankly, I'm just going to pack right up, and I think we're going to be out of here. I liberally applied a good dose of sunscreen, and I'm letting that soak in. I got an SPF 50 for this. I think that ultimately I'm just going to end up probably pretty burnt. That seems to be a theme of this trip. And I think one thing that I'm going to mention in the takeaways episode in a few weeks for you is how much more seriously I need to take sun exposure, given that when I'm down here, I'm often cycling in shorts with skin that hasn't seen the sun in months and months and months. And I really need to do a better job of that. Anyways, today is going to be roughly the same amount of miles as yesterday. Turned out yesterday was about 48, I believe. It was originally scheduled to be 46, but there were a couple of detours, a couple of wrong turns that I took despite having the ride with GPS route yelling at me on the phone the whole time. So it should be about the same. I'm leaving a solid 3 hours earlier. It's currently in the low 60s right now, so I think it's going to just be fantastic. I'm just going to be in shorts and t-shirt and sun sleeves, which, by the way, those really, really kept the sun off of me. I cannot recommend them more. I'm actually going to wear a neck gaiter as well today, just because, wearing clothing over your skin is better than sunscreen, quite frankly, but you can't wear something over your face quite as easily and feel comfortable riding in this. So that's why sunscreen on exposed skin. But today I'm leaving early, getting through these miles, and what's really an enjoyable ride, just like yesterday, is despite it being kind of like urban assault, going through a lot of industrial areas, it's kind of an enjoyable ride. It's just different, you're I gotta leave the bike lane and go on the sidewalk. That sounds like hell for a lot of you, but for me, it kind of reminds me of my old suburban days of just kind of like finding my routes around by bicycle. It's the same kind of way around here. This one ends up getting a lot more rural. There's a bunch of miles on the Van Fleet Trail, so there's a little off-road action as well. And then, of course, there's Deanstill Road, which is that really, it's fast, it's roughly shoulderless, but it's such a straight shot. People see you from miles away. And I had some really good experiences on it. It'll be interesting to see how it is on a Sunday. Because who knows how much extra use it gets or how less use it gets on a Sunday. As I mentioned, this is all parallel to I-4. If somebody's really trying to get someplace, they tend to be on the interstate. So that's one of the advantages to all of this. All right, I am going to continue to drink a little bit more coffee, pull the Gatorade out of the refrigerator. Oh, by the way, for Christmas, I got the powdered version of the grape Gatorade, which is fantastic because they didn't have any grape Gatorade or any grape sports drink at the other place. So I had to chug through good old lemon lime. And now I have a Gatorade container that I can use my powdered grape Gatorade in. So it's little things, right? It's the only flavor as far as I'm concerned. All right. Plenty of things to get accomplished here before we leave. And next time you hear me, we'll be out on the road.
Taking a quick break outside of Lakeland here. One of the interesting things about Florida is how much development is happening. And, that's not a surprise, right? But the interesting thing is how much bike infrastructure is a part of it. Now, is it a huge part relative to the amount of development? No, of course not. But I missed a turn because I was expecting what was going on with my memory, which was to get on the other side of I-4. And I'm going to have to go check the old route that I had to see if it's the same. But there is a beautiful, wide, multi-purpose pedestrian bike lane here that is paralleling a toll road, or what will be a toll road, or down the way here. So it's kind of remarkable what is in the realm of possible bicycling wise in this part of the state. This is not going to be the only bike trail that I'll be on today. As I mentioned, I'm on the Van Fleet for a good chunk of it, a bunch of miles coming up. So it's nice to have, and it's nice especially here because there is some trees with that beautiful like southern hanging moss. I wish I remembered what it was, but I've taken a few pictures of it along the way. It's something Kimberly really likes, so I've sent her a few pictures. But it is blocking the sun at the moment, so I'm catching a little shade while I say hello to you all. And in addition, grab a little bit of liquid refreshment here. Listen to me sip. Great podcasting. Yes. Just staying hydrated. It is pleasantly cool at the moment. I know that's not going to last, but I will take it. The sun is very strong. I have reapplied on the area that is the most scorched on me, which is my right leg. I am going to liberally apply to all exposed parts of my skin, which is limited at this point. I pulled out my bike gloves because the tops of my hands, of course, were very burned. So, yeah, sun's strong down here, y'all. I know. Who knew, right? Well, I'm going to keep rolling. I'm working my way to Polk City, which should be not too much further down the line here. And then I believe from there, that's where I catch the Van Fleet and go north. So we will check in again later on, but making decent time. I'm finding I average a little under 9 miles per hour, which is slower than I normally go on other bikes, but is consistent, if memory serves, with what I do on the Brompton, which is just kind of a slower bike. I'm sure I could do it faster. I know that there are people that do it faster, but I am loaded and I am not in a rush. So 9 miles per hour works great for me. All right, more to come. From the Auburndale Trail. Yeah, new to me too. It's crazy how different this route is. And I just wonder if, this does not look like a new trail. It's just interesting that Ride with GPS helped me out on this. This is a much less traffic exposed portion of the route because I believe this goes northbound for quite a while. It does hook up with the Van Fleet and then it's Deanstill. And that's the one heavy duty work, doing lots of work kind of road in terms of getting me eastbound. And then I'm spit out basically on the edge of the kind of, would I call it like, it's not like Buena Vista, but it's, you're in shouting distance. I mean, I'm within reasonable Uber Lyft distance, as I mentioned in the preview show. That was the original plan. And, now, not so much. I'm gonna have to bike my ass there. But yeah, it's really, really nice to have these constructed, wide, flat, maybe not, I won't call them flat. There is a bit of a grade, small grade, going northbound at least here. Not barely perceptible, but you have to cycle into it. But the surface is excellent in most parts. Now, I feel like Florida has it a lot easier, of course. There's no freeze-thaw cycle, and that's what creates so many problems for so many trails. In addition, a lot of the trails are through heavily wooded areas, and of course, you get some root action. So, they do the work once, and it'll last a decade or more, I would imagine. But boy, what a delightful cycling surface to go on. So, winter in Florida cycling. I think, having done this now for a third year, it's hard to say no to such things. Now, I'm sure that there are other parts of the country where there are equally good opportunities, but this is, it's fun that, I've only scratched the surface. If I do this again next year, which I would think is pretty likely, there's some other interesting trail systems that go north of Tampa and then cut over, which I think I may consider doing for a multi-day kind of ride. So yeah, Auburndale Trail for the win. Quick water break in Polk City, Florida, at the head of the Van Fleet Trail. It's warming up. It is a Sunday, so folks are around. I have just secured full water, which is going to have to get me to the end of Dean Still Road because there are no services at all on that road. So it is incredibly important to make sure that I have this all figured out. I do think I should be all right. I've got a fair amount of food and whatnot. I ended up not doing I think I'll wait on that. I have one of the things that I have that are new, and I just have had them for a while. When I did, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to apply sunscreen, so we'll complete our discussion before I hop on. One of the things that I got at a prior event was that I went to was some maple syrup packets as an alternative to using, those goos and things like that. And I've never been a huge fan of them. And of course, as I prattle upon all the time, I don't eat sugar typically, but I do when I ride because I've done it with no sugar, and I have noticed that I can't do the real pound out the miles kind of thing without having some kind of easily accessible calories. My body never tunes all the way, I think, to keto. I know for folks who listen who eat keto and do that, you're waving your arms going, oh, just go all the way. And I never get there. And that's not my intention either. So my next attempt at this is my first attempt at it, and that is to try these maple syrup packets. And I had one earlier this morning, and frankly, it felt great. It also was infused with a little caffeine as well, which I thought was kind of a good way for me to get an extra little jolt in there. So I have at least one, maybe two more that I can take a look at as potential snacks. And I also have things like those, peanut butter crackers, and I think I have some wafer cookies or something like that. So it's just, I think I'm planning on snacking my way through this the next several miles. So in fact, since I'm standing here right now, I think maybe I'll pull it out. I will not eat in front of you, but you'll hear the rustle perhaps. Oh, I have fruit trail mix as well. I have way too much food for what this ride is, but that's fine. I'd rather have too much food than not enough, especially for the next several miles. So I think in my last segment I said, oh wow, this trail I've never been on, and that's just not true. On the ride 2 years ago, I definitely was on it. What's different is I never had to do any kind of road work at all because of the new trail that I talked about the segment before. So I've been off road for better part of the last 10 miles or so, which is pretty great. And the road that I was on prior to that had a great bike lane, so just great infrastructure here on day 2. All right, more to come. All right, Dean Still Road, folks. The one road I probably mentioned more than any other road in any route because it does so much heavy lifting. A reminder, it is parallel to Interstate 4. It is, let's say the shoulder is about 6 inches on a good day. But the road itself is in excellent shape, so I don't get that overgrowth that I get in so many other parts of the state. The other element is that it is heretofore been a low traffic road for me. Now, I think part of that is because I may have been riding this mostly on weekdays, which may have been a piece of that. It is about 10 a.m. on a Sunday right now, so I think it is an open question as to how much traffic there's going to be. So far, I have not been passed in the eastbound lane. It is 2 lanes. A single yellow dotted line, and then going to a double yellow as we get closer to larger intersections, which there are very few of between here and the end of the line. My first pass, very respectful distance, another solid amount of distance, somebody waiting for the opposite lane to go by before passing. So yeah, we are much more traffic than I'm used to. There was a line there of 4 cars, but excellent handling of all of that from a vehicular perspective. So yeah, we're also in kind of the one part that has some activity. Once I get past this roundabout up here, which is going to be in a few minutes, it gets real rural real quick. That is an enunciation exercise right there. So I have about, memory serves, this is about 15 miles on this road. I have a good supply of water. I spent a little time on a break off mic throwing some calories down the old stomach just to get going and to give a little touch of a break. I also just readjusted my saddle height, and I feel like at the next reasonable opportunity, I'm going to readjust it a touch down. I was starting to feel a little fatigue on the left leg that I typically get if I have sunk, and it turns out that I didn't. I did tighten up that saddle height adjuster last night, and it has done the trick. But now I'm trying to dial in. I always add a touch of additional extension on the saddle extender. The on a Brompton, if you're not familiar, when you have the saddle extender such as I do, gives you a second height adjustment, and I am just long enough in the legs that the max length of the internal seat adjustment is just not quite enough for me. So that's one of the reasons why I got the saddle height extender. But because it's such a small amount that I need, sometimes I overdo it. One of the things that I am taking advantage of is pedestrian access. I could have very easily taken the lane, probably would have been quicker, but just for safety purposes, I am utilizing the pedestrian crosswalks in here, which is interesting because there is nothing around here. I'm grateful that they have them. All right, through the circle, and I'm gonna hop on this sidewalk and do what I just said I was gonna do, and that is to readjust this down ever so slightly. There we go. It's nice that this is here actually, because there is so little infrastructure on this road. This is probably it, quite frankly. There we go. And I might have put it down a little too far. Oh well, that's all right. It's better than what it was. Always interesting with Bromptons how much fiddling you often have to do, because unlike standard touring bike, where once you dial in your your saddle height, you largely keep it there for the rest of your trip, and maybe even longer than that. With the Brompton, because you are constantly folding and unfolding, perhaps at the end of your day, you are having to redial it in a little bit from time to time. So, all right, yeah. Shoulder is a little wider here on that's this side of the, of the roundabout, which is nice. And I'm seeing my first speed limit sign. It is 55 miles per hour, which memory serves as the speed limit all the way until close to the very end, where I believe it drops down just ever so slightly before, I believe it's US 27, where I'll be going back northbound again. And I'll be doing that for a few miles before I start the real adventure, which is the backdoor kind of access onto the handful of roads that will get me to my resort, and most of which are secondary roads within Disney, and are, based on what I see, bikeable. So the other thing worth mentioning is the weather. It has now started to, here in the 10 o'clock hour, start to ramp up the temperature. I've been very comfortable temperature-wise for this entire time. Really, yesterday it wasn't so bad. It's just, I hate to be a broken record, it's just that sun exposure. When the sun hits my more cooked parts of my skin, I'm definitely feeling it, so I've been reapplying liberally good sunscreen, and I'm hoping that improves my situation for tomorrow. Let's see, I think that there was one other thing that I wanted to raise, but it is not coming to me at the moment, so I will bid adieu from the west side here of Beanstill Road. Much more traffic than I am used to, but so far so good. I think if I could just gut through the next hour and a half, and gut through might be overstating it, then I think it will be almost all good infrastructure from that point on, with a couple of small, there's one maybe mile long portion that's roughly like this. Like this is the worst I have for the rest of the day, and this is not so bad. I've certainly been on established ACA routes that include long stretches that are far worse than this. So I consider this an okay opportunity, considering it is a tertiary road that is a straight shot getting me where I need to go. All right, more to come. We're about halfway down Dean Still, and everything has been just fine. I am very pleased at the amount of shade I've had based on the position of the sun in the sky. That early departure is paying some dividends right now, which I think is fantastic. Car traffic definitely higher. It has calmed down now that we're kind of in this really rural part right now. So that's great. Road conditions are fine. Bike's performing fine. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Fatigue level's higher than I would ideally like. I've been having trouble finding the sweet spot for the amount for my gearing. My level is somewhere in between my two gear options, and it's just been a little tricky kind of finding that rhythm. But I definitely am feeling it. I just ate one of those maple syrup packet things again, the maple syrup shots, and that has definitely been helpful. I think that kind of got it's taken some of the edge off of the fatigue in my legs. One element of this ride that I forgot is just it's constant pedaling. There's very little chance for breaks. And so the reality is that ordinarily I can usually kind of use coasting as my brakes a lot of the time. But I think that I need to be more mindful about hopping off the bike and not considering that some kind of level of failure or something, which of course is ridiculous. But you know how it goes sometimes. Got a few more cars coming up from behind me here. Yeah, a lot of space. A lot of space. I've been very appreciative of the vast majority of the Florida drivers today. I think, assuming they are using this road frequently, I think it speaks to their expectation that there are going to be cyclists on the road, although I haven't seen any. And I suppose if you're not doing what I'm doing and kind of going from point A to point B all by bicycle, it does make more sense given the excellent trails that folks on bikes would, for the most part, drive to a trailhead and just go on something like the Van Fleet Trail and you could do a 60-mile day on that very, very easily, just doing out and back from Polk City. So, I don't begrudge people for doing that if all they're trying to do is to get some miles. Now, for me, I'm getting miles and transporting myself. So, to each their own, and I'm grateful that this road exists because, as I said, it does a lot of heavy lifting for me in terms of point A to point B. I've used that phrase twice for different reasons in this particular chapter. All right, that probably means I should shut up, and I will check in on the other end of Dean Still Road. All right, we're on the east end of Dean Still Road, and I am now seeing a sign for US 27. There's a little bit of a hill here, and I am ready for a break, but I'm not ready to stop. So I decided that to hop off and walk up the sidewalk on the opposite side of the road. Does me two things. One, keeps me moving, just to kind of stretch out my legs. Like what I talked about at the end of the episode last week. I like to kind of sometimes stand up straight and walk as a way to kind of stretch out after being in the saddle for a while. It just kind of helps me quite a bit. I have gone just under, I think once I get to the end of this road, it'll be 30 miles altogether, which means I got about 18 to go, which is interesting because every time, when I've gone this direction before, back in 19, this was the end of the line. I got No, that's not true. I rode Kissimmee. Never mind. I did not. I have considered getting a ride from here to continue eastbound, but I did it when I was going westbound in the 2020 ride. That's right. I got dropped off at the Walgreens that I can see right up ahead here, which is kind of handy. I think what I'm going to do is, after finishing my walk up here at the intersection, I will cross over Highway 27, US 27. There is a bike lane there, and I will ride up, and I think I'm going to stop at whatever looks good to get kind of an extended sit down, maybe 20 minutes. For many of you, you're like, that's extended. It is for me. I'd like to kind of, get a nice something cold in me and be off the saddle for a few minutes. And I think that there are a few things within a very short ride of here north. This is the beginning of the end, really. Granted, yes, 18 miles, but I go north from here, and then it's turning in and doing a lot of kind of side street action for the next couple of hours, we'll call it. I think that I've got about the pace that I go. Calling it 2 hours sounds about right, and it is currently 11:30. So yeah, the good news is I'll be arriving earlier than I had originally thought, and being able to get out of the sun for the majority of the really strong sun part of the day. One thing that is helping me right now that I've emerged from the limited cover is the cloud cover has increased a little bit. I don't know how long that's going to go for, but I'll take it as much as I can just to, again, reduce the exposure. But, so I have to say, big success so far. I mean, now that I'm here, I'm back on roads with, although they're major roads, don't get me wrong, at least Highway 27 is, there is bike infrastructure that's baked in the cake, as it were. So that's something that I like. I've got my flashing red light on. Didn't feel like Dean Still was a problem. Slightly more traffic than normal, but that was the one big lengthy amount of more exposure than I'm used to, and we got through it just fine. So, as you can probably hear, US 27. Sorry, my ride with GPS is yelling at me to turn left. I know. Yeah, and we'll be going up and crossing the road here and proceeding and finding a little something to eat. Well, rather than yell at you more, we'll just end it here and we'll check in later. From the outskirts of the Disney World area, I'm on Florence Grove Road, and I will tell you, sidewalk riding is the way to go. Man, got buzzed pretty good by a car I'm probably going to be passing in a moment. I think I'd mentioned this, that maybe I did. If I didn't, I'll mention it again. My cousin's partner was involved in a well, he was hit by a car, let's just put it that way, and broke his leg real bad. He was on a bicycle and was hit by a drunk driver. So I, as a consequence, am doing this with that in mind and being extra safe where appropriate. And so this road is not great for biking, so sidewalk it is, which I think is probably why what people have done. This is a road that I looked at on Google Maps and it looks pretty quiet. It is not. 30 mile per hour speed limit, but at this on a Sunday around, what time was it, 12:30, very busy traffic. So I'm grateful that the sidewalks are here. This is the thing that I was kind of concerned about from this point on. You can only go so much by what you see in Google Street View. One thing I'll say is, boy, this area is just explosive growth. There are things that are being built right now that were not in the Google Street View that was, I think, maybe a year old. So pretty crazy. A little bit of winding around here in what seemed like back roads, but are really connecting roads at this point. And it kind of makes sense. There's not a lot going on in between all this development. So any arterial is going to get used by a local. So this is one of them. So yeah, just taking it as it comes, taking what the roads are giving me. Bahama Bay Phase 2 coming this summer. Immediate occupancy for those searching for spacious 2 and 3 bedroom homes. Yeah, I guess. I just like biking around here, thank you. And I'm grateful that these new roads exist because when they build these roads, they are clearly throwing in some bike infrastructure and or sidewalks. And I count sidewalks in this context as bike infrastructure. So here we go. And this is, what is this giving me? It's stopping me. It's kind of cutting off the corner rather than sitting on 27 and going up to a very busy or similarly busy US 92, which of course we were familiar with from last episode. This cuts the corner a little bit, although it doesn't do it in a great diagonal, so I don't know if it's saving me any actual miles, but quieter roads, I'll be making a left in a moment and, continuing my trek north. That's where I'm at. I've gone as far east as I kind of need to. With, there's still a little bit of eastbound riding. It's more of trying to get north up onto Disney property. So the next trick is to cross Highway 92, which I'll do at a light with a crosswalk preferably. I think I had identified a place for that. And then taking, again, some more of these back roads that connect up with the first of the arterials that are going to be really important for me getting onto Disney property. And as I had mentioned before, they looked good on Google Street View. One thing I will say, because just so folks know that this is in my head even at this point, if it doesn't look good, if it is bad news bears, I have no problem just saying, you know what, it wasn't meant to be. I'll have ridden further than my original plan anyways, and that's all fine. But I'd really like to make this work if I can. And if the one calling it a choke point, the one tricky part is less tricky, then I think great. If it's the same, great. If it's just bad, then we are not going to do it. All right, making a left on West Side Boulevard. And more sidewalks. So yeah, we'll take that. Here we are. All right. More to come as we get closer. I have gone eastbound on Funny Steed Road, which is the strangest name of a road I've ever heard. I mean, is it any weirder than Dean still? I don't know. That seems like a name. Maybe Funny Steed is. It's F-U-N-I-E-S-T-E-E-D. Weird. Anyways, with apologies to Ms. or Mrs. Steed, we are getting closer. We are continuing on sidewalks just because it's the better bet at this point. There's much lower traffic on this road, but I'd rather just stay on the sidewalk. I did the same on Highway 72, actually. It was well kept. There was nobody else on it. And, when you can be separated from traffic, why not take that if it's appropriate and fine. I am getting a second wind, or perhaps a third wind, thanks to the magic of sugary sodas that I had at lunch. A little caffeine, a little sugar. Never hurt anyone. Well, it does all the time, but just encountered the first person I've seen on any of these sidewalks here, which seems strange for a Sunday. The Van Fleet Trail had a cajillion people comparatively. I'm about to run into the same thing that I did earlier on one of the roads. The sidewalk just mysteriously ends. Now, as opposed to the other road, oh no, I take it back. It looks like it just deviates. Well, maybe it doesn't. No, it does continue. It just gets closer to the fence line because the road narrows. I see. Okay, that's fine. One of the other roads, the first one that I turned off of off of 72, the sidewalk just mysteriously ended. But there was another one on the other side of the road, which I was very thankful for, as I mentioned in the last one. So we are, tick-tocking our way eastbound, northbound, up until we get to Highway 92, US 92, which we'll be crossing. A little trivia for those of you who were with the show 2 years ago. The hotel that I stayed at in Kissimmee was right on Highway 92. And the reason why I stayed out there, A, it was cheaper at the time, but B, also I wanted to bike to a hotel and I didn't think I could on Disney property. We're hopefully going to prove that wrong. But also, that was the trip I did, the continuation all the way across Florida to Cocoa Beach. So I wanted to go further east. And as it was, I still had my longest mileage of the trip on that third day. I will not have mileage like that tomorrow. A lot of people enjoying their screened-in pools today. Weather update, because after all, this is just technically a weather and food podcast. Somewhere in the low 80s, I think. But most importantly, cloudy. Or at least partly cloudy? I don't know. I've never understood the difference between partly and mostly cloudy. But the sun is not showing. All right, we have officially run out of sidewalks, so I am now going on the road. Unless this is the road that I'm turning north on. Let's see, hold on. It is indeed. So I run out of sidewalk, and that's fine because I'm turning anyways. That might have been by design, or that might have been why I chose now to turn north. I am going to utilize the intersection here at the intersection of Funny Steed and Linfields Boulevard. Traffic is fully cleared, and away I go. And guess what? There's another sidewalk. I think this looks much quieter, so I may, for now, stay on the road. Yeah, this for the first time feels like, like pure neighborhood kind of setup, which I feel a little bit better about. But what's crazy is, these, and I'd characterize them as kind of suburbanish vibe homes. Probably, what would I say, maybe probably 3-bedroom homes, all single story, as so many are here in Central Florida. Almost all of them have covered and screened rear porch areas, which looks like it cuts some of the sun a little bit. Also keeps the bugs out. Probably great for outdoor times most of the year. Oh, it feels nice to not have traffic. It feels like so much of this ride is with so many cars around. And I know for many of you that would be an absolute deal breaker of a trip. And frankly, the absence of it right now just makes me realize how much that's been pounding my senses for the last day and a half. Quick mile check, 10.4 miles to go until I am literally rolling into the resort. But I think that it's probably the next 3 or 4 that are going to be the most interest. We'll call it that, just because the place where I am, where this thing's going to get called, if it gets called, is on Western which is the first of the Disney-specific roads. The interesting thing is that once I get past this one point that just looked, if there's a lot of traffic, it's not going to be good. But if I can get past it, I actually go by one of the main entrance signs, which would be kind of fun for the picture. In the preview episode, when I Photoshop myself into things, it's done very obviously. But yeah, I'm not going to get a picture of me like rolling by it, but I would like to get a picture of the bike in front of it, because it certainly would prove that I did what I did. Oh, this is so nice. I was so excited to see some interesting birds, but as you hear, that's a crow. I have seen some long-billed ibises, I believe. But nothing real crazy. I am expecting to see some really interesting bird and other wildlife, birds and other interesting wildlife tomorrow. Because where I'm hoping to go is the Fort Wilderness area and some of the interesting areas. Hi, puppy. I've had some fun dog encounters. This was it yesterday or this morning? It was this morning, yeah. Go by a car. I'm in the bike lane on a very busy street, and this little Pomeranian, or I think it was a Pomeranian, was not thrilled with my existence. And they had their windows rolled down and they were holding on. She was adorable, but of course she was bark, bark, bark. What are you doing? Who are you? Let's see how this car behaves with me. Very good. Very good. Went over the double yellow line. They didn't have to do that. It's a pretty wide road here. Really interesting homes here. I'm of that age where it's sort of like, oh, I wonder how much a house like this would go for. The kinds of things I probably used to make fun of people for thinking. Because this is very close. Obviously, it's within biking distance of Walt Disney World. It's kind of fascinating. We are at a possible problem spot. There was a point where it said road closed, and I had seen that in one of the Google Street Views, and the road kept going. And I was like, oh, it must just be because later it's going to be, or it was temporary and maybe it's now gone. Well, now it's clear that the road was closed because I'm literally pushing over dirt to get... Oh, good. Okay, there is a road here. It does continue. My goodness. Yeah, they are putting in homes here. And whether or not that road is going to exist anymore is an open question. Because this could be someone's backyard. This may be a one and done opportunity. I don't know if this is going to work. We're going to have to see. I may or may not be technically trespassing at this point, but I am on a road. Just see if I can get up and out of here. I'm hoping this continues, because if it doesn't, well, there's a sidewalk. No, this ends. Well, this is interesting. I figured it out. I, as usual, should have just kept going straight over another dirt mound with the continuation of the road. So it is very clear. At some point in the not distant future, John M. Hall Company, Florida's premier site designer, is either going to reopen this road and everything will be cool, or this road is not going to exist anymore and another route's going to be necessary. But I'm very lucky that it's Sunday, because I am quite certain that the good folks of John M. Hall Company, Florida's premier site designers, would not have been into me riding through their construction site. There's not a lot going on. I mean, who knows if anybody's directly working on it at the moment, but this is going to be a 55 plus active adult community. Well, maybe in a few years I could consider it. Probably not. It may be a gated community that allows no access through this road, but because I'm on a bike, I could for now.
Folks, normally this is the time for statistics, but that is going to be held off until next week when we complete day 2. Can we ride a bicycle all the way to my resort's poolside bar at Walt Disney World? See you next week. And as always, we like to close out the show with a special shout out to the Pedal Shift Society. Because of support from listeners like you, Pedal Shift is a weekly bicycle touring podcast with a global community, expanding into live shows and covering new tours like this fall's upcoming bike tour. If you like what you hear, you can support the show for $5, $2, or even $1 a month. And there's one shot and annual options if you're not into the small monthly thing. Check it all out at pedalshift.net/society. On to the society. Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lane, Andrew McGregor, Michael Hart, Keith Nagel, Brock Dittus, Thomas Skadow, Marco Lowe, Terrence Manson, Harry Telgadas, Chris Barron, Mark Van Rand, Brad Hipwell, Mr. T, Nathan Poulton, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Cody Florchinger, Tom Beninati, Greg Braithwaite, Sandy Pizzio, Jeff Muster, Seth Pollock, Joseph Quinn, Drew Porter, Byron Patterson, Joaquin Robber, Ray Jackson, Jeff Fry, Kenny Mikey, Lisa Hart, John Denkler, Steve Henkel, Miguel Quinones, Alejandro Aviles Reyes, Keith Spangler, Greg Towner, Jody Zeranin, Lucas Barwick, Michael Baker, Brian Bechtal, Reinhard Biggle, Greg Middlemiss, Connie Moore, William Gothman, Brian Benton, Joan Churchill, Mike Bender, Rick Weinberg, Billy Crafton, Gary Matushak, Greg Latoile Lopez, James Sloan, Jonathan Dillard, John Funk, Ronald Paroli, Dave Roll, Brian Hafner, Misha LeBon, Ari Messenger, David Gropke, Todd Grossbeck, Wally Estrella, Sue Reinert, John Lico, Stephen Granada, Philip Mueller, Robert Lackey, Dominic Carroll, Jackie McCullough, John Hickman, Carl Presseau, David Neves, Patty Louise, Terry Fitzgerald, Peter Steinmetz, Timothy Fitzpatrick, Michael Azuski, Hank O'Donnell, David Zanoni, David Weil, Matthew Sponseller, Chad Reno, Spartan Dale, Carolyn Ferguson, Peggy Littlefield, Lauren Allensmith, Eric Burns, Thomas Pearl, Darren McKibben, Richard Stewart, Dave Fletcher, Jack Smith, Luke Parkinson, and new to the society, Ryan Patterson. And thanks also to all past and anonymous folks for helping make this show happen. Thank you for joining. You can find Pedal Shift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedal Shift project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.